right. Uh, it's been a good day. It's been a fun day for reading. I got to do a talk with somebody to do a little bit of a collaboration, which was really fun. I got to introduce Jurassic Park to my oldest, something that I've wanted to do, and I was just reminded, both in watching that movie with my daughter and watching and doing this little collaboration, just how much I love stories and how much we all love stories. And really, it can come in a variety of formats. Obviously, if you're reading this, you love the stories from Steven Erikson, and I do too. I'm still holding with it that I think it will certainly end up being my favorite series, if it isn't already now. But there are a lot of areas where we can get great stories, like sci-fi and historical nonfiction and literature and comic books and movies and things like that. And it's just great to see some of those things done really, really well. And it just makes you kind of excited. And sometimes it's just, you kind of awe at how good the pacing is. Sometimes you just love to see some of those moments. My favorite sort of through line through Jurassic Park is this Dr. Grant's transformation into being kind of this guardian father figure temporarily for these kids. It really changes him. He throws that claw. Just lots of great moments of transformation, and that's why we love stories so much. All sorts of different reasons, but just so great. And this chapter 2, is no different. Man, it's amazing that you get to the end of some of these chapters and you feel like you've gone through a whole act sometimes of any other book. And sometimes it's only 30, 40 pages, but you get a lot out of those 30 or 40 pages. I'm going to try to rip through some of this. I'm going to go through the scenes, and I have highlighted some things, but just some of the major things. I know I always say that, and it turns out being rambling anyway. Okay, we start here, and we get Silchus Ruin, who's becoming just maybe the coolest character in the series, but there's a lot of those. And we get the information that sky keeps have been dug from the mountains, and a lot of where the sky keeps were dug out are now underwater. But some of these earliest ones, I believe, were dug out of these mountains right here and haven't been levitated or whatever. Maybe they're more like outposts or weren't meant to be that. I don't know. But it sounds like they were these cities, and then they would, I don't know how you make it levitate. I don't know. But that's very cool. And they are going to this sky keep. We still don't really know why. Silchus knows why, and he's even mentioned that to Saren, you might know why I want to go up here or have these ideas of where it's going to go. You have no idea. And that's just a clue to the reader. Like, you don't have any idea either. So I'll take Steven Erikson and Silchus's word for that. Very, very cool, though. They go over in this that the sorcery that destroyed the city was formidable, and it was this Starvald Emerlon, or Demelane. Destruction, the work of dragons, Elaint of the pure blood. So not these soul taken, but pure blood Elaint, which, I'll mention that in a sec. But we wonder what their crime was that could change him out to warrant this level of destruction. And also, it's kind of confirmed here, I think. I wasn't too sure what to make of this, but it's confirmed here that these soul taken, by taking on this kind of dual nature, which, holy smokes, just it's so great. We had this bug that was the dual nature. We had the lethery and the e-doer dual nature. We have Rulad representing this dual nature, and now we are kind of understanding that even though these are soul taken, half dragon, half not, that is dangerous. That is super dangerous in to take on potentially. It looks like that dragon side doesn't lie dormant as something that you just wield, but is something that you have to fight against. Very, very cool. I love gothic monsters. That's my very favorite kind of one of my very favorite genres. I know I've mentioned it before. Things like the werewolf and Frankenstein and Dracula and that whole sort of area there. And a part of the reason I love that is some of the time you will have this dual nature where people will try to kind of fight off that other thing that is digging at them or really vying for the most prominent position. And it sounds like Silchus is fighting constantly to kind of either push that down or push that into its proper domains, or I don't know. But that's cool to think about, especially as that is a big part of the theme, this dual nature. And I'm thinking of the title of Reaper's Gale, and I think of a reaper, and I don't know if they are super picky about what they are reaping. Just this wide sweep across both uh, both natures or both crop or whatever. But it seems like that would be a part of things. I think I'm onto something. At least it's so. I love these different themes in these different books. Anyway, let's go to the next part. Yeah, he does mention, I suspect that when we arrive at our destination, nothing will proceed as you anticipate. Very, very cool. And she is thinking that he's quite one-dimensional. And I think Fear also has these, Fear and Silchus have this back and forth. And we will have this next scene. I think the next one is this scene about certainty. And it's very interesting now to go back and to see that represented in a few of these characters' interactions within this chapter. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So we get to Kairos and Tanel. Is that his name? I think. Yep. And they are hearing these people screaming in the dungeons, and Tanel shows this contempt for them, saying fanatics, and just disgust for them. And Kairos really schools Tanel here, saying, and I'll just, I highlighted everything basically here, but he's saying, by saying that, you are giving away so much about what I find so contemptible. These fanatics, even though they are very certain, you can kind of work with that. You can use fear, you can use hunger, you can use all these things to take away comfort, and then you can almost turn that into making them feel like they can come to you, and it turns their certainty here, and just by degrees, almost like the frog in the water, you can turn them here. He calls them presently misguided, which is quite the term here. But this guy that's screaming is making a lot of points over here that go so against what Tanel feels over here. So they are polar opposites, thinking that the other side is the fanatic sort of thing. And he is saying, this Kairos is saying that, you guys are both two parts of the same coin. It's actually not what they are feeling as much. I mean, I might be oversimplifying a little bit, but it's not so much that he is feeling this and you are feeling this. It is almost like it is almost the certainty that you have that you are on the high ground, and they over there are the others who have the moral low ground. And again, this is going to be so interesting as we see the E-doer and Lethery as it's played out, as well as fear as the Edur and the Silchus ruin this albino Tistandi, which is just glowing with possibilities, as far as just amazing kind of things that we can, metaphors and things like that. I'm a fan of metaphor. If you haven't guessed, so very cool. And he's really schooling him, and he's saying, it's the certain ones that can change. It's the uncertain ones who keep silent, who are always thinking through things, and they just are. I don't know if it's the silent ones are uncertain, but it's these certain the ones that just scream and rave and feel like they are so certain about their position that it is infallible, and if you go against it, you are one of these other ones. There's all sorts of political dynamics and things we can take out of that, but very, very cool. And he says, "Are you so certain about your things?" Or I don't know if it's that's exactly what he says, but let me just see here. The ones who say nothing or turn away now, that is the list of those who must die. So we let them scream because they're basically doing their work for them. And I think also of that first brittle eyes reference, and think that those with this great certainty might be those with the most brittle position. I might be overthinking that. Okay. You were so quick to judge, weren't you? Ah, you revealed so much with that contemptuous utterance. I wanted to rip your head from your body. For you and your kind, you think you have all the answers? And this is interesting, also because this Tanel guy is he's the opening perspective. And we don't usually get somebody so contemptuous as the opening perspective. Or contemptible. There's this. Well, you pathetic little creature. This is Karos talking to Tanel. One day, uncertainty will come to your door, will clamber down your throat, and it will race to see which arrives first, humility or death. That is very cool. I know I did one video a while ago where we think how far in a person's journey are we willing to give people some kind of pass for growth? These very contemptible people like Bidithal, and this guy is like the worst. So I'm interested in seeing if, it seems like he will not change at all, or he'll change when it's very much too late and he'll kind of get what's coming to him. Seems like that sort of thing, but interesting to see how it'll happen with him, how it will happen or might already have happened through Silchus, how it is happening currently with Fear. Udanis is a very interesting character in this next book than he was in Midnight Tides. He was kind of a different type, and he's, now he's free to kind of let go a little bit of his frustrations and things like that. It's just very cool. These different dynamics between people, their prejudices that they've had, and this certainty thing now is a very neat way of kind of putting the baseline of one of the things that this Karos guy sees as kind of a symptom of maybe what he would view as wrong with people and things like that. Anyway, I might have rambled too much for that, so we'll see. Okay. Permit the men below to scream for the rest of the afternoon, then have him sent below again. Okay. Then we get this amazing scene, and I feel so bad for this lady, this Janath. I think that's her name. And this is the woman who is supposed to be let go. This one who's well connected, and she's a lecturer, a senior lecturer in the Academy of Imperial Learning. Seems like somebody who would definitely get targeted. And she is brought down into this lowest point of a dungeon that hasn't even been used for years. You just think of the depravity that could exist down here. And then it's noted that she said nothing. So that sparks you that she's one of these people that really they should be worried about. That should get targeted. That they would want to target more than these fanatical, the ones that rave and things. She's one of those people that can. She's a cold, smooth customer, and she calls him little man several times, really getting under Tanel's skin. He's trying to intimidate her. He says he's pitiful and small-minded. She's incredibly smart. She must be totally freaked out still. Like, obviously, she doesn't want to get hurt, but it seems like she's almost saying, you could hurt me and do all this, but you are in the shackles just as I am, especially as you guys think that. I don't know if actually she's the one that brings up that. Is she the one that brings up that you are just as much a slave, sort of, to the e-doer as anyone? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But very, very cool. Great scene. She lectures on personal responsibility and the necessity of compassion. And he says, yes, your moral relativism. And this is an amazing thing she says. I refute any notion of relativism, little man, which you'd know had you bothered reading those notes. The structures of a culture do not circumvent nor excuse self-evident injustice or equality. The status quo is not sacred, not an altar to paint in rivers of blood. Tradition and habit are not sound arguments, which is obviously a part of what he is saying here, or he's kind of pushing for. White Crow woman, White Crow woman, you are most certainly a lecturer. It's interesting that he would use that almost like it's like Hood's breath, but White Crow, and this is Silchus's thing. That's very interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go skip the rest of this because I think I've made the point I was hoping to make, but as he's trying to threaten her on the way out, she is laughing. And so she isn't intimidated by him, but it's almost certain that she still fears greatly for what's going to happen. And I just think this is such an amazing dynamic that could go south really quick, even more south than it already is. This could be bad, really rough. Okay, we get to the Factor, who is the guy who is running the stuff happening against the Aldan, or the All living in Aldan. Maybe I got that right. And we find out some of the background, and as it has to do with this Red Mask guy. So he is the one kind of systematically kind of purging these areas, taking their flocks, and becoming much more wealthy because of it. And let's see. And this, who's the guy who is watching the E-Doer, who is watching all this brawl. He's an interesting one as well. I get some of the vibes that he will not like what's going on and will end up cheering for him, I figure. And he wants to know what kind of report is going to get back to the Emperor, because he is in this remote region and he just got assigned there. He feels very insignificant. He's kind of, they're doing it right in front of his face, and he wants to know what kind of report would be there. And we might see what kind of thing he can do about this. But it's also interesting here. And this is another way where you wonder who's really running who at this point. We have Yeah, he's this overseer to a small city in a remote corner. He was indeed beginning to believe that the Tist Edur tribes, scattered as they had become across this vast land, were little more than flotsam riding the different currents of a turgid, deep river. Think of the nascent and the flotsam all over there, but also think of the rending of what it called Emerlon. And is it Emerlon or Emerlane? I'll have to actually go look at that. And I'll look at that right now. Emerlon. Okay. And we also see that even though they are overseers, there are very few of them compared to the population of the Lethri who are spreading out and doing this stuff. And it's almost like the Lethri, in allowing this system to kind of come to pass, or it's this melding. It is forcing the Edur to be spread, just like this other splitting, which is so cool. We get to an arrest. They are arresting people. There's this Orban Truth Finder, who is the Patriot commander. Sedition is always the charge here. We hear that Silchus's party has been cited, but that seems more like an Edur issue. And the patriotists, are saying, well, we should get involved in that too. And we know that they have measures in place where they're trying to figure out all this. They have these Edur sorcerers and things kind of working at that sort of thing. And they hear alarms. And this was an amazing scene that I don't think we need to really even talk about, except for the fact that we have Red Mask, and he's been hiding in the shadows. He is this exile who got exiled for the fact that he was trying to bring tribes together, and he was pushing against the elders. And of course, when you hear elders, you think of those who are vying for tradition. But we've had a couple different dynamics here. We've had tradition as not a stable ground against not, and we've had certainty versus uncertainty. Now, tradition, people would have certainty with tradition, but also would have a level of certainty against tradition. And both of those areas don't leave room for that nuance of asking questions that would push towards the non-tradition, or maybe some of these things from tradition are indeed good. So it's very interesting that it's more about this open mind, or this willingness to pursue knowledge, or pursue things that are not so much entrenched, and very, very cool. So we have this Red Mask who he lost his sister. And here, let me just make sure we're getting this at the right time. He comes in and he assassinates all these patriotists. So he is this awesome resistance force. And he did this all on his own, and there's blood everywhere and dismembered limbs and stuff. And they think, oh goodness, he is back from his exile out in the wildlands. I think they're called the wildlands. And also, when you think of the wildlands, or lands beyond the border, this is something where, think of, there are a whole bunch of different places we can do. We can think of how they would look at, they go to the beach, and that's like a border from lands known to chaos. Think of Lost. We have our little party, and then the others are the others. It's like the unknown. We have, they would look up into space, and it was just a totally different realm. You have the Romans not knowing what is, looking at the people in the north as these barbarians. And imagine living in a time where you were around the Mediterranean and you knew that there was stuff to the east, but imagine living in a time before those, what we call the Silk Road, but really is a bunch of pathways through that. Imagine living in a time where you had no idea what was across that area. Think of Alexander the Great's armies marching pretty much to India, I believe, and just saying, "Yeah, we're not gonna keep going." But what a world that would have been. And they would kind of call them I can't remember what they called the people further to the east, or the unknown. But I think the Chinese had some kind of word. I don't think it's the yokai, but maybe it's something like that. I don't know much about Chinese history, but very cool. And yeah, so he has been in this area where they go in and nobody comes back. And if they do come back, like this one woman, they come back really very different. So he's been in this exile, and now he's back with two Kachin Chamal that listen to him. What the heck? That's like the coolest thing ever. Anyway, when he was very young, the Factor, the same guy who's doing things now, he went after this tribe's herds where Red Mask was, and he was the younger brother. He had an older sister, and they kidnapped the young woman. And of course, she had a younger brother. That's him. And in order to purchase that debt, to get her back, man, this is just amazing. Her own freedom. Letter demanded her father's herds. This is their economy. This is their livelihood. And again, I think of a time when wealth had to do with number of herds and your big caravan. Think of the time of sheiks and things, these traveling parties, and many servants and this head of the household and thing like that. And I just think of, to get back one of their own, they're giving up this massive thing that they might not ever recover from. Very amazing. And some people, I won't go into another digression. Okay, maybe another time. Let's see. Yeah, it is very cool. And they agreed to do that. And as she's getting traded, she plunges a knife in her own heart. But this letter leader, I don't know how you say it, he still feels entitled to those herds. A deal's a deal, even though they stole the girl. But yeah, it's just crazy. And this whole tribe just attacks. That's what happens, right? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They all got destroyed, except for one survivor. It's this boy, and he wanted to unify the tribes. He went against the elders, and they banished him. And it seems like, that seemed like the perfect thing to do for the time. We've seen those confederations of tribes be used plenty of times. And this temporary thing, we've seen that plenty of times in Malazan. The Edur and the Andi working together was probably a wild thing. And then, of course, this betrayal. And this is turning out to be one of my favorite intros, as far as some of the themes that get echoed and are being set up, kind of the seeds planted. The all lost that war. That is why they fled west. There have been no Lethri expeditions into the wildlands, not for decades. The single survivor, she came back talking about hissing nights. I don't know what that means. We will see. And she couldn't be healed, so they just put her to death. If Red Mask succeeds this time, succeeds with the tribes, we shall indeed have need of the Tist Edur. Holy smokes. This is very convoluted in some ways because we have people that we kind of like in all these different areas, and this convergence of what's going to happen here, just very, very cool. Okay, we have these two companions that somehow listen to him. Sag Churuk and Gunth Mach. I don't know. Crazy names. But they somehow listen, and we don't know why. And I wonder if they have some kind of dual nature as well. Silchus Ruin is more Andy than this Elaint, I'm sure. With his nature, I would guess. Maybe these two could change Shamal, have a dual nature of some kind. I don't know. Okay. And then we have Saren Pedak watching Silchus and kind of being amazed at this guy who could he's standing super still. There's extra, he seems very poised and even certain. It even gets mentioned in this scene that he's a certain type, which also makes you think, remember, the certain are the ones that could be swayed. They have a very hard position, and if you can just tell them, if you can just sway this thing that they are 100% on to this side, then you have that. So yeah, I'm just very interested in seeing in what way he will change, because it seems like that is definitely foreshadowed. But she's watching him. It's unimaginable to her how a person could so suffer without going mad, being stuck in this place where he was stuck for so long. Perhaps he was mad. As a killer, he was both thorough and dispassionate, as if mortal lives would be reduced in meaning, reduced to surgical judgment, obstacle, or ally. He's just very cold here. Yet, for Silchus Ruin, much seeming complexities were without relevance. He had found a kind of certainty, and it was unassailable. Then we have Fear and Silchus Ruin kind of going back and forth, talking about how Fear, remember, Fear heard some of his stories from his mother, who are kind of like the ones who are, we have patriarchs often who are kind of like the storytellers. They kind of carry that sort of thing. But in this among the Tist Edur, it is these mothers who pass along this ancient knowledge. They pass things from one to the next, or they are keepers of this. And he has heard the truth. He knows about Scabandari doing the first betrayal. And Udinus laughs here, and he says, "Tell me, Fear, Sengar, once master of mine, no longer, does your brother have any idea who Ruin is? Where he came from? I would suggest not, else he would not have come after us personally with 10,000 warriors, or else he would have come after us personally with 10,000 warriors at his back. Instead, they toy with us." And then we get Kettle just jumping in from the turnbuckle with this amazing knowledge, which is also not knowledge, but really is focusing everybody's eye. It's focusing our eye as a reader. It's focusing Saren's eye. It certainly focuses Silchus's eye. Kettle says, they want us to find what we're looking for first, of course. They're kind of like herding us like these cattle that they are taking from the Aldan, or from the All. They're wanting us, they're blocking attempts of going anywhere else, blocking the attempts of going inland, because that is not the way they want them to go. How do we know that? Because the crippled god told them. That's how. The crippled god said it's not time to travel east. He's not ready for war. He doesn't want us to go into the wildlands where all the secrets are waiting. And Saren's like, who the heck is the crippled god? And we also think, how the heck does she know this? And she has been told. She is being told by the dead, these spirits, these trapped ones, which I think are these trapped Andy, or does it matter who they are? But it's somebody who, or many even, that are telling about this thing that is going on. They are listening in to things. They are either close to, it seems like close to Rulad and listening in there, but also maybe, yeah, he's getting his information somehow, and it can't just be each time he dies he gets a little bit. It must be through this herald that keeps coming. I can't remember the herald's name. You guys might need to remind me that if you know it right off, because I don't think I have that in this glossary. But that gets everyone's attention. They are waiting for somebody to tell him all he needs to know, to tell him the truth. I sorry, I missed something. They said the vast wheel is about to turn one last time before it closes. It closes because it has to, because that's how he made it. To tell him all that he needs to know, to tell him the truth. Tell who? Him, the one who's coming. You'll see. We need to hurry, or they'll get us. And if they get us, Silchus Ruin will have to kill everybody. And Udinus is laughing. This is wild stuff. Silchus, Saren said as she moved closer, do you have any idea what Kettle was talking about? No, Ecuador. But, he added, I intend to keep listening. That is a very, very cool chapter. Very cool chapter. Such a great continuation on the themes that have been built in the prologue in chapter 1, and I can't believe we are only 106 pages into this, and we've gotten this much to chew on early. I imagine it's going to go shortly, and I imagine we'll be able to do some shorter videos. But man, it's just the gift that keeps on giving so far, this Reaper's Gale, and I'll talk to you on the next one.